Well, 20 years ago, I took an unexpected journey. Some people moved in across the street from us, and they had little kids the same age as my little kids, so I knew we were going to be friends. But I soon discovered that they were of a different religion, and they were very devout. I had a degree in Christian theology, but I realized I didn't really know hardly anything about their religion. So I had some homework I was going to have to do if I was going to have any opportunity for fruitful discussion with my new friends. The religious landscape of America has changed dramatically in the last 50 years. We've all seen it. There's increased secularism, of course, lots of people that have no religion, but there's also increased religious diversity due to a lot of immigration into our country. And while the church, I believe, has done a really good job addressing secularism through apologetics, I don't know that we have really kept pace with the challenge of world religions that are now in our midst and flourishing on American soil. According to Pew Research, Islam is actually the fastest growing religion in the world. And it's expected to double in the United States in the next 15 years. So maybe you don't know a Muslim right now, but chances are in the next 15 years you will. You're going to have more Muslims in your schools, in your business contacts, in politics, and even maybe right next door to you. Are we ready to actually encounter people who are Muslims? Do we know anything about their religion? Can we dialogue with them with any kind of knowledge? I don't know that we're all ready for that. So what I want to do this morning is basically give you a flyover, kind of an aerial tour of Islam. And it's not everything you would maybe need to know, I'm sure it's not, but it will give you some vocabulary to perhaps go across the street and introduce yourself to that Muslim family and start some fruitful dialogue. Now, you could describe the religion of Islam with one word, and that is the word submission. In fact, the word Islam means submission, and a Muslim actually means one who submits. So Muslims are the ones who practice the religion of Islam. In the Quran, which is their holy book, it says, in relation to God, religion is submission. Now, in order to submit properly, there are basically 5 essential beliefs and 5 essential practices that any good Muslim is going to do. Now, of course, not all Muslims are devout, and there's a lot of diversity within Islam, but if you know these 5 essentials, the 5 essential beliefs, 5 essential practices, you will have a real good head start in dialoguing with a Muslim. So let's look at first the 5 essential beliefs. The first belief is in God. No surprise there. A belief in God. They use the word Allah, which is just the Arabic word for God. How is God described in the Quran? He's described as the creator of the heavens and the earth. He's described as the maker of mankind. He's described as the one who knows all and all-powerful in many of the same ways that we describe God. He is a one-of-a-kind being. There is nothing like him in all creation, and to associate God with anything like an idol or a man is the worst kind of blasphemy, the worst kind of sin. It's the sin of idolatry. Now, God also, according to Muslims, could not possibly have a son, because in the Quran it says, how could God have a son without having a consort? How could that happen? And so they reject the idea that God could have a son. And in fact, you'll find that if you do start talking to Muslims about your faith, the biggest hurdle will be this concept, first of the Son of God, and then of this idea of the Trinity. It's very, very difficult for them to understand what we mean, and it may be that you will have to do a little brushing up on your own Christian theology in this area if you're going to be dialoguing with Muslims. Now, it also teaches in the Quran that God is merciful and loving and benevolent, and that he wants people to submit to him. He calls them to submit to him. But it's very interesting that there is a word that is not often used of God, and that is the word love. He does love, but he loves conditionally. He loves the one who submits to him. He does not love the one who does not submit to him. So there we have a beautiful opening for the gospel, that while we were yet sinners, God loved us enough to provide for our salvation. This is a concept that's unique to Christianity. So that's the first essential concept, is the first essential belief is Allah. The second one is spirit beings. They believe in Satan, they believe in angels, and they believe in these creatures called jinn, from which we get our word genie. These little spirit creatures can cause a lot of problems in life, and you might actually find in talking to Muslims that they have concerns about some of the activity of these spirit beings. The third essential belief is that of prophets. Mankind was born pure according to Islam, but we have just a real tendency to stray away from God. And so God sends prophets to bring people back along to the right way. And they believe that Adam and Abraham and Moses and many of the Old Testament prophets, and also John the Baptist and Jesus, were all prophets sent by Allah to lead people back to the proper worship of God. So they accept all of those prophets. But Muhammad is a very special prophet. He came along about 600 years after Jesus, and he's considered the final prophet, the universal prophet. He's not a prophet limited to a certain group of people at a certain time in history. He's the last prophet because he brought the last scriptures. And so there will be no more prophets after Muhammad. And everything about his life is held up as a beautiful example of how to be a good Muslim. The fourth essential belief is scriptures. They believe that the Bible was corrupted. They do believe that God gave the Bible, but that it's been corrupted. And they believe that the Quran is the final pure scripture that corrects all the errors that are in the Bible. They believe, fifthly, in judgment, that there is a judgment day coming, that either people will be sent to paradise if they've done a lot of good deeds. God might send them to paradise. If they've done a lot of bad deeds, God might send them to hellfire. But the key is that it's God's choice. He is sovereign in this matter. And so a Muslim never knows whether they have done enough to earn God's mercy and that they will be sent to paradise. They have no assurance of salvation. So these are the 5 essential beliefs. What about the 5 essential practices? These are often called the pillars of Islam. There is the confession, which is that there is no God but God, there is no Allah but Allah, and Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. And that second part is very important, acknowledging that everything Muhammad brought came from God. And so saying this confession of faith is what brings a person into the religion of Islam. The second essential practice is prayer. They pray 5 times daily if they're devout. These are ritual prayers. These are not, "Dear Lord, help me with my business" kind of prayers. These are very prescribed, certain things they do, certain things they say during these prayers. The third essential practice is fasting. No food and no water during the month of Ramadan to show their devotion to God. The fourth pillar is that of charity. They're supposed to give 2.5% of their wealth every year to charity, either to the local mosque or to other charitable organizations. And the fifth essential practice is that of pilgrimage. If they're able, once in their life, they're supposed to go on the Hajj to Mecca, where they do a number of rituals called the pilgrimage, if they're able. So these are the 5 practices, 5 essential beliefs, 5 practices. And if we sort of make that into a house of Islam, the roof of that house would be the dawah, the call to Islam, because it's the duty of every Muslim to invite other people into the faith of Islam. Well, that is literally a flyover of the religion of Islam. You know, Jesus gave the church the command to go and bring this wonderful good news of the gospel of grace to all people because he loves all people, and that includes the Muslim neighbor next door. Thank you.